Right, so the French up against the Argentinians over in France. Two pretty stable teams heading into this week. Both teams coming off losses, so very much needing to bounce back. The French, from what I've heard, the press over there is all a bit doom and gloom about the state of the rugby team. And for the Pumas, yeah, still a bit of feel-good feeling around there with Mario Ledesma, but you got to wonder how many more losses they kind of start to tally up before the doom and gloom sits in there as well. I will put the lineups in the description so you guys can have a look. But in terms of their recent history, it's close. France, too many videos today. France have had 3 wins of the last 5, Argentina 2, so it's almost as even a split as we can get looking at the last 5 results. Average score, though, in these results, 18 points to France, 16 points to Argentina. So not real high-scoring games, and not much between them. I suppose that kind of makes sense if you know, if the record is like that. So this looks to be a pretty hard one to pick. The French have made 2 changes, and they're both in the back line. Pinot hurt his ankle in the game last week, so he is not playing. So there's Huget on the left wing. Excuse the pronunciation. My French and my Italians are pretty poor. For number 12, it's Fickou who comes in for Dumouriez. I remember he got hurt last week in the game against the Africans. He kind of went off and then he came back on, then he went off again. So it's not kind of a real big surprise that he's not playing this week. Guirado still starting. No surprises there. He got a try last week. Gomes are still there. So I mean, Bastareaud still there. It's all pretty familiar stuff. Lopez had a pretty solid shift from 10 without being fantastic. Serin at 9 also ran the ship well enough. Copped a little bit of flack, the pair of them, but again, I think it was probably the nature of their loss. More than anything else, they had the French press kind of up in arms about that game. For the Pumas, it's pretty much only one change, and that's Bertrand in for Kubeli, and that was the bench guy for the starter, just swapping places this week. So it's not a huge change. Kubeli is on the bench this week, backing up Bertrand. Bertrand again started most of the games for the Jaguares this season, so it's surprising that they started Kubeli last week, to be fair. Bertrand seems to be Ledesma's number 1 choice. All the other usual suspects are there. Lavanini, who had a huge game last week, is still in the second row, alongside Alemano. That front row of Medrano, Crevi, and Garcia Botta will need to really up their game, because they were under the pump against the Irish. And if they're going to just concede points via the scrum, it could be a very long night for the Pumas. But their backs were outstanding. Guys like Boffelli, Delgui, and Moyano. Very dangerous players. So if they can get a sniff, don't be surprised if they kind of take some points that you might not have thought that they ordinarily would, just because they can find lines and run angles that don't quite seem that possible. In terms of the bookies, they're saying France by 6. So this is the only game, I think, where the Northern Hemisphere team from the 4 that I'm covering, so that's the All Blacks and Ireland, Australia and Italy, Springboks and Scotland. This is the only game where the Northern Hemisphere team is favoured by the bookies. So we'll see if France are able to get it done. What do you guys think on the squads? As I said, have a look. They'll be in the description. And yeah, how do you think this game's going to go? Do you think Argentina can go and get upset, or do you think France are finally going to bounce back after another kind of pretty hard time? But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.